West Coast Eagles here with a massive, massive win. Their coach couldn't be more delighted.
Pulse is racing everywhere. Oh, who else? McDonald-Tipungwuti. Boak, no easy way at all, and the pressure is relentless. And so is the scoreboard.
Hello, I'm Damien Barrett. Welcome to Access All Areas, brought to you by Virgin Australia. Richmond and Brisbane pressed their top 4 cases on a big Sunday, and as I welcome Matthew Lloyd and Jimmy Bartell, are the Lions the real deal?
I think they might be now. I think we were discussing, are they finals? Now they're certainly locked into the top 4. You look at their run home. They played 4 at the Gabba, 1 down in Tassie, and I think a great build into the finals game there at the MCG. But 2 wins on the road, Lloydie, 1 in Sydney, and an absolute powerful opening there in Adelaide.
Yeah, they would have looked at their fixture and thought the Giants away and Port away, what a tough stretch that is. And they've done it easily. The games have been over at quarter time in both. And just on Port Adelaide, I thought it was one of the more embarrassing losses I've seen in the last decade. And that's I'm just not saying that flippantly. I thought the way they went after Lachie Neale and couldn't back it up on the football field was pathetic. You know, they just gave away this, just dumb free kicks. Bravado, put your head over the ball. You know, go after Lachie Neale in a way of not limiting getting the football. But it was a team attack. They forgot about what you got to do as well, and that's win the football. I just thought...
is it conditional, Lloydie, with this passion they play with?
What is it? If you can bring it every second week, what does it really mean? So you just got no faith in Port Adelaide whatsoever. This is a team, Brisbane, who are hard at the ball. They know what wins them games of football. Port don't have that. And I just thought the way they went after Neale and forgot about the aspects that win your games of football was made an embarrassing loss.
Yeah, and it showed a real sign of maturity from the Lions. With all that going on, you look at this goal by Zorko, Link McCarthy hits the scoreboard as well. They just played the ball and the man really hard. So a real sign of maturity. But I think their game plan is based off emotion, Lloydie, and they were trying to manufacture it there by going after Lachie Neale. We see when they play really good footy, they're hunting in numbers, they're playing on quick, but it's really difficult to replicate that week in, week out to try and get the playing group to play at that high level.
Got the job done in the first quarter, 7 goals to 2. And you want to go to the proverbial footy war with Mitch Robinson, I reckon, wouldn't you? You can see him on the bench here as Lachie Neale and Cam Sutcliffe, his opponent for the day, go to the boundary line. And he can't wait to get on and try and deal with Sutcliffe.
Well, you get annoyed as well again because he saw in the cheek there, Lachie Neale, and he's going to see the doctors. And when a player then hits you from the back, they don't like that. And you see him behind the coach, Chris Fagan, doesn't get animated very often, but they were pretty disappointed with the way Port Adelaide went about it early in that game.
Yep. The other big winner out of the Sunday fixturing was the Tigers. A GWS mauling they did on the weekend. And the games out of the bye, St Kilda and Gold Coast prior to that, we couldn't get a read. I think we were able to get a more accurate read on their resurgence.
Yeah, and I think it's based off what has made them a good side in the last couple of years. Their hard defensive structure, their press around the ball, which forces those long kicks in. And we'll see some footage here. Richmond being able to set up that spare man across half-back, almost that quarterback role. We see Grimes, Vlosten. They just kept swapping it up. So if their direct opponent went too high...
So Jimmy, why wouldn't GWS and their coaching staff, led by Leon Cameron, negate this or attempt to mitigate this loose?
I think they did it at different times. The way Richmond had set up and the pressure around the ball, they were able to pick and choose which number came off. So it wasn't always the same player. We're seeing a couple of these with Grimes being the man, but you look at the next player rolling across. Hooley sometimes was fair. It was almost the GWS player who got too high in the contest. That's who they dropped off.
This margin they created in the first quarter was effectively the buffer that all they needed for the remainder of the game. It was lost in this opening stanza.
I rarely say this, but I think it was as much beaten in the coach's box as it was by the players. Yep. They didn't look like scoring in the first quarter, and they didn't look like they had an answer to what Richmond were doing behind the ball. Leon Cameron was asked about it. He said, if we man them up, they'll just throw another number back behind the ball. So we don't want to give them that. But I still thought they didn't execute well at all, the Giants, early.
Have you given up premiership hopes now? You're 9-7 and 6. I mean, I say you because you sit on the board of the Giants.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But I look through the team. There's so much talent still left there. I know they lose key players each week. They lost Cornelio, of course, early in that game. But you go from the back line. Davis, Shaw, Haynes are quality players. Midfield, Whitfield back in. Taranto, who's having a great year. Hopper. And then forward of the ball, Green, Cameron, and the way Harry Himmelberg's playing. there's still a lot of top-end talent spread across the whole field. They're still good enough.
Yep. Do you have an insight as we speak, as we go to air on Cornelio's latest injury?
No, I don't, because Monday, that's when you see players going and get scanned, so no update.
There's reason to hope overnight, but again, we'll get a full update and an official update from the club at some stage of this afternoon. The Bulldogs remain in the finals mix, and it's largely, or at least significantly, on the back of the form of Josh Dunkley. He's made himself into a midfielder, 39 touches yesterday, 24 of them contested, Jimmy.
Yeah, I think about round 6, Luke Beveridge had, made a bit of a swap around a couple of players, and it wasn't a big adjustment, but he started to play a lot more on ball. Since that round 6, I think it was, against Freo, he's been averaging 32.5 touches, but as you said, it's the contested situation, it's lots of tackles and lots of clearances. Look, Melbourne dominated the hit-outs and won the clearances, but he was responsible for more than a third of the clearances for the Bulldogs, so they're hard touches, but even though his kicking action sometimes, Lloyd, he looks clunky, he's a sound set shot for goal.
Yeah, he's one of those players, Damo, you know what you're going to get from him every week. You can trust him, and the support he's given to Bontempelli not to have to do everything has been magnificent.
Yep, nice exchange between him and his brother, who was playing his debut AFL game for the opposition. This happened in the second quarter, as you can see, and then Kyle Dunkley's having a shot at goal, and Josh on the mark, and doesn't necessarily like his brother having a moment here.
No, it was really good. It was a good moment because he actually shouldn't have been paid the mark. The ball hit the ground. They weren't happy at that time. And later on in the game, actually, Josh has a shot and his brother Kyle was trying to put him off. So good banter.
What a turn of events. Because of the mid-season draft, over a month ago, he wouldn't have been playing, and then he's kicking his first league goal over his brother's head.
Yeah. Great story. And the draft has been a success this year, hasn't it, with increases for it next year. Seasons can be shaped late in a particular game on the back of one man's brilliance, and that may well be the case with Essendon's Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti, who seized the moment late against North Melbourne and just kept the Bombers' season ticking along to the point where they're still a finals hope.
He was just brilliant, Tipungwuti, one of the best individual games I've seen him play, but this is what we want to talk about. It's all been about how Tipungwuti got loose, but he had to give this Atley. You cannot do what Atley did here because he would have known.
Is that the worst option that he took?
Worst option you can possibly take was kick it into the open space because Essendon had numbers back behind the ball. So we'll all talk about how there was a bit of confusion, who has Tipungwuti and all that sort of thing, but that doesn't even happen. If Atley gives a handball and they can go out to the boundary side or keep it in tight, get tackled, another stoppage. So he was magnificent, as was Ben Brown down the other end. But what a turnaround it's been from Essendon. Now in the 8, and a huge game coming up against Adelaide on Friday night.
Yep. The bottom has nearly fallen out of the Dockers. 4 losses in a row, another bad one to Hawthorn in Launceston on the weekend, and there are so many problems they've got. We'll just highlight some issues that they've got bringing the ball out of defence. This is embarrassing for Ross Lyon now to deal with what's going on in this part of the ground.
Yeah, some of these more decisions than kicks actually are really bad, and that's un-Ross Lyon-like sides. His backline are normally taught to play sound, safe football. You take the really short, safe option.
We know Pearce is unavailable, Jimmy, but Ethan Hughes and Connor Blakely here, they're just kicks that you just don't want to see at an AFL venue. Yeah,
you can't do anything as a coach. Like, you can put all the game plans in place, but if you're just going to hack it and turn it over or kick it to the man on the mark, what do you do as a coach? But I was a believer in Freo. Obviously, I mentioned all the Giants' talent, and you still look at Freo's talent. Ryan, Wilson, Mundy, Walters, Fife, Lobb, Matera, all these sort of guys on their list, and they're just not playing up to what Freo can do.
And the coach probably deflecting, I feel, unnecessarily about the treatment of Nat Fife, who we'll just have a look at here in a weird moment with Henderson, who got a free kick and a 50-metre penalty paid here. And he tried to milk the new rule, Henderson. He still managed to find a teammate when he got his chance.
Henderson, what happens is they weren't allowed to play on, so with the 50, but what he's trying to do with this new 50-metre rule is he's trying to say Fife is in his passage of play. But what Fremantle did here, still, Hal Wingard, there's no one on him in that time. So they're just off. Kicked 10 goals now in 2 weeks. 2 goals last week, 8 goals this week. They're just a mile off for
I think round 1 they end up paying that as the 100-metre penalty. Don't they? It's good that they've relaxed a little bit because that would have been farcical.
Yep. One of the great wins of Nathan Buckley's coaching came on Friday night. Collingwood beat West Coast over in Perth, and it was a game of regular highlights, but we want to highlight something here that's not going to get too many stats for the man in question. The way that Chris Mayne played on Shannon Hearn, please take us through it forensically as to how he impacted significantly.
Yeah, he just stopped him intercepting, marking the ball and just played on him. It wasn't like a hard tag, but whenever the ball come in, he was close enough to make a contest. And Chris Mayne is Nathan Buckley's sort of Mr. Fix-It guy. He can play up on the wing. He can play those defensive roles. We saw in the grand final, I think he had about 15 tackles. So he's just sort of that guy. He can plug in anywhere. And his role, Lloydie, along with the Collingwood forwards, was super.
What I thought it did well, Damo, was it allowed Myercheck and Cox to play more dominant games. So might not think much of it here, but 16 marks between Cox and May, and obviously Myercheck, because those players like Barrass and McGovern couldn't go third man up.
Yep. Cats did what they had to do on Saturday night, a grind against St Kilda, but finished the round 2 games clear on top.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly. They did what they had to do down there at home. Look, the Saints were certainly brave leading at half-time. Not too many sides do that, but it was just the golfing top-end talent in the end. The Cats had more class players. You know, Duncan, Dangerfield, if he wasn't playing, really that'd be a lot closer game. And Gazza has he starting nearly every week. About he's 20-2. Just park that for another good game.
Just a few individuals would need to find a bit of form, like Gary Rowan's tapered off, and you're wondering, is Gary going to bounce back, or have we just seen flashes? And Tommy Hawkins has been off as well. They'd like more from him. And
yet again, in isolation, another good performance, in inverted commas, by the coach Alan Richardson of St Kilda. But ultimately, after 6 years, the good performances are not going to get it done. There's been plenty of love for the Virgin Australia footy family story on the Carlton cheer squad, and here's a small teaser from that feature.
We're not about just the game of football and the Carlton Football Club. We're about each other, the bond that we have, the passion that we have. Outside of the football walls, it doesn't change for us. We're the same people, we still hang out, we still do the same things. The only thing that we have in common, all of us, is this football club. It's what's brought us together.
Full version of that video at afl.com.au/footyfamily, and don't forget to head there and tell us how you celebrate with your footy family for your chance to win a $2,000 travel voucher thanks to Virgin Australia. On to the Blues. David Teague has another win under his belt. He's 3 from 5 now, and they beat the Swans at their own game.
Yeah, and he's put the senior players back around the ball. I know early in the year they wanted to put Fisher, Dow, these guys, give them some experience around the contest, but a lot of that game up there, because it was so windy, was a contested clearance-style game, Lloydie, and he had Curnow and Murphy playing in centre bounces around the contest, and also Cruiser fit and being able to take full advantage. He was the only recognised ruckman on the ground.
Yeah, to win at the SCG, you've got to be strong in the clearances. That's why Sydney had been so good there for so long. Kennedy, Jack, Luke Parker, even George Hewitt, those types. But well done, Carlton. I just think that it's been a magnificent turnaround under David Teague.
Yeah, it has been.
What do you think? Any chance David Teague, Damo?
Look, this time last week I said no, but he's doing his own cause a world of good every time he takes a team out, doesn't he? Yeah, I still think no, but it's a watch this space, obviously. Gold Coast, consecutive 90-point losses, the latest to Adelaide Crows, and there's a piece of play involving Eddie Betts late in the game, or against Jesse Joyce, where he's going to want this time over again. You can see it's just before half-time and the score's already a blowout. He just doesn't do what he's meant to be doing.
And we saw Brandon Ellis against Richmond Gold Coast last week, just get a 50-metre, no one even manned the mark, ran in and scored the goal. So, Stewie Dew, you could just saw the devastation in his voice in that post-match press conference. How do you keep turning up to speak to your players when you lose 12 games in a row? It must be hard trying to sell a message of hope week after week when you're losing the way they are.
That word, though, it still applies for the Crows. They've got Essendon on Friday night in Adelaide. It's an appetising game, isn't it? It's
probably their toughest one in the run home, but they still need to win it. The Essendon are really coming hard to secure that final 8 spot. So Adelaide, they do need to win it, in my point of view, Lloydie, even though they've got some easier ones coming in.
Yeah, the speed of Essendon would concern Adelaide, I think, on Friday night.
Boys, get ready. It's time now for the Access Big Ask, and this one's to you, Lloydie. Are the Giants too banged up to mount a serious premiership challenge?
They are, but also just not playing well enough as a team. So it's banged up, but also just nowhere near the top teams.
So both. You get to pick one of Jordan De Goey or Jake Stringer for the rest of the year. Who do you go with?
I'm going with De Goey.
Yeah, De Goey for me as well.
And Jimmy, what is the biggest issue the Suns need to fix?
Development and culture. So you can't keep throwing first-round draft picks if they do a tumble turn and come back out. Damo, I get to throw one to you.
Go for it.
John Longmire out of the running. Who is the leading candidate for the Kangas?
The leading candidate is now clearly the caretaker. I just hope, though, the club, just to be thorough on it, it does still do what it intended to do and cast the net as wide as it possibly can, because I think just to lock him in now is not the right way to go about it, given they made the big decision to move Brad Scott on. To both of you, again, who has been the coach of the year?
Chris Fagan for me, Lloydie.
So I don't just say the same as Jimmy. I'll go Damien Hardwick for the injuries he's got and possibly a top 4 finish.
Yep. Again, to both of you, 4 potential All-Australians injured this weekend. Hurley, Pendlebury, Canelio and Moore. Who of that quartet is the biggest out?
Canelio, massive loss for the Giants.
I'm going Hurley because you can normally cover midfielders, and Collingwood are used to playing without Moore, and Hurley for their run into the final 8, Essendon.
Yep. And one more to both of you, and it's just a simple yes or no. Will Essendon make the finals?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Jimmy.
Yes, the funnies.
You want to bring some funnies?
I want to bring some funnies here. Zach Tui, he's a very funny guy. We see him standing the mark a lot here. But unfortunately, sometimes the umpire gets a little bit of saliva in the whistle, and doesn't he let him know, Zach Tui?
Did anything come out there? I'm not sure. He's milking it.
There's a little bit of mayonnaise on that, but it's funny.
It was good. He's a passionate man, Zach Tui. Wouldn't have liked that. And I'll finish with Sydney Stack, I did kick a lot of goals, Damo. I don't reckon I ever did this, where you can't celebrate too early. You've got to watch it. You just got to see it go over the goal umpire's hat before you start going off to your fans and your teammates. And Basher, the experienced man, just said no.
Hey, as we finish up today, I just want to say a really big thank you to an outstanding producer of this program and an outstanding person in Lucas Shearer, who's leaving us, Lordo, and he's been crucial to this program and this organisation.
Here, Damo. He's been magnificent, one of the great people I've met in footy, and just does the job brilliantly.
Yep,
so
he does. Big loss. Lordy, thank you. Jimmy, thank you. And thank you for joining us on Access All Areas, brought to you by Virgin Australia. Have a good week, and we'll see you next Monday. Goodbye.